Hey, I want to welcome you to Beyond the Message, where we continue the discussion from Sunday's message. This week, I got John Plum here with us, and we're going to continue the discussion on the first sermon from the new series, Unoffended.
Let's go.
And I think we're all ready. It's like, this is going to be a great sermon series.
It is.
But I have to ask you a question. Before we get into our main questions, let me ask you this. What would it have been like if we had done this sermon series last year prior to the presidential election?
I think there's a reason why we didn't. It comes down to, I think, the echo chamber of everyone's talking heads would have created more challenge than good. Mm-hmm. And so I think a very strategic move let's do this after an election. But the reality is, whether it's an election year or not, it's really easy to live an offended life.
It really is. In fact, it's easy to default to an offended life.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just easy. This is just easier.
Mm-hmm.
It's just easier. And so, which kind of brings me to my first question. Pastor Alex made a great point. He said, if we live an unoffended life, we will be happier and live longer. Why do you think that an unoffended life results in a happier and longer life?
It's a great question. And I love how Pastor began, and he started by saying, well, one, it's a matter of mental health.
Yeah.
And it really is. Think about those who either are on podcast or on Twitter. There are individuals who all they do every day is stir up issues.
Yes.
And they create conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they make their money. That's how they make their life. But I can't imagine the anxiety of always having to produce that. So much of this is about mental health, but the way I like to think about this, Bob, is let's say you do something to me and I get offended. Without realizing it, so often what we do is we pick up a dumbbell, like a 25-pound dumbbell, and I go, I've got an issue now with Bob. I'm offended. He offended me. And I instinctively think that the only one who's impacted by this offense is you and me.
Right.
The reality is, until I deal with this offense, it goes to my home. Mm-hmm. So it now impacts my wife and my marriage. It impacts my kids. It impacts other relationships because it goes everywhere. And I think what Pastor was driving to is that we will live a happier and live a longer life if we can learn to let the weight go of carrying the offense, because in one sense, we become the bull in the china closet.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and it is. I like the thought of carrying a weight. And what it is, you're not just carrying the weight. Eventually, you start swinging that weight, and you're hitting everyone around you. You're a bull in a china closet. You're just swinging the weight because you're angry, and you're swinging at everything that moves, and eventually it starts to come out. And I think the reason why it makes you happier to put it down, listen, I work out because I want to exercise. I want to live longer. Well, I also I think a happier life causes you to live longer. Think about someone that you know that they're just a bitter person, and they may be 40 years old, but they look like they're 60. They act like they're 80 or 90. I mean, bitterness ages you. The amount of energy that it takes and requires to stay that angry that long. I mean, that's more energy than I burn in a day. That's more energy than I burn in a round of golf. I mean, that's a lot of energy. It ages you to be that angry all the time.
It does. I think, to go back to that visual image, I carry this weight, and you make a great point. We don't understand the impact. It's like if I were to try and shake your hand right now, but I still have this weight, we're going to fumble this.
Yes.
And I can try and give my wife a hug, but now she's going to get the hug plus getting walloped in the head with this dumbbell.
Exactly.
And there's just a cost to constantly being offended.
Yeah. I remember I had been working someplace, and my supervisor and his management style just didn't fit me. And it was a great man, godly man, but it didn't fit me. And I felt abused and picked on and a few other things. And so I left angry, but I left on good terms, and I thought everything was fine. About 3 years down the road, I'm preaching a message, and at the invitation time, sharing, I'm wrapping up the sermon, and in my head, God says, Bob, you still haven't dealt with this. And I had to make an appointment to drive all the way back to that town and meet with the person and said, listen, I should apologize to you for this. And they said, well, what did I do that made you so angry? And I looked at him and said, it's not about you. It's about me. I held on to the anger.
good.
I held on to the dumbbell. I should have settled this with you. And we could have agreed to disagree because our contention wasn't that they were a bad person, I was a good person, or vice versa. It was, I didn't like their management style. I didn't work well under that. They didn't like my being the way I was
Following style.
Yeah, my following style. It wasn't a good fit, but we genuinely care for each other and things like. And so when I realized I had been carrying that dumbbell literally for 3 years and didn't know, I got so accustomed to the weight that I didn't recognize it.
Yeah, but think of what's come as a result of dealing with it.
Mm-hmm.
Not only your arms free,
Yeah.
but the peace that comes,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the tension.
Yeah. And so Pastor also talked about the essential of us seeking justice through righteousness. And so I want to kind of use a illustration. Why is it so essential for the river of justice and righteousness to flow through the two banks of mercy and grace?
Such a great question. You know, it immediately makes me think of the one issue we said we would not address, politics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There have been times in my life where I've been the political junkie, either side of the aisle. I just like to know what's going on in the world. But one of my favorite things to do is to watch Supreme Court nominations, those hearings.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things on both sides of the aisle, those senators, when they're questioning, want to know is Lady Justice blind?
Mm-hmm.
We want those who are making those judgments to not look at me or you and make those decisions based upon, do they like us? Do they like the way we look?
Right.
It's a matter of law. I think what happens is exactly what Pastor was talking about with these scales. So we want justice when someone's done wrong to us.
Right.
We love mercy when we need it.
Yeah.
And when we're the one who's done the wrong.
Exactly.
And the challenge is, how do we go with justice and righteousness, mercy, keep these in perfect tension? And I really believe it's that third piece which Pastor addressed in Micah 6:8. And that is walking humbly with our God.
Mm-hmm.
As I was thinking about this, Bob, I was reminded the number of times in Scripture where it says God opposes the proud, but he gives grace, which is what we talked about, the rivers of mercy and grace. He gives grace to who?
Yeah.
The humble.
Yep.
And so
Exactly.
the way we walk through this is to realize, A, we're not God. And B, we're very imperfect. But C, to constantly measure this in the midst of there's justice, there's righteousness, but the greatest need is grace.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, this summer we saw, I think it was back in July, the flooding in New Mexico and Texas and the devastating loss of life in both of those. The damage happened when the river overflowed the banks. When justice and righteousness overflow the banks of grace and mercy, justice and righteousness become self-righteousness. And now I put myself in the place of God as the judge, and we do more damage than good. But when we keep it flowing between the banks of mercy and grace, because grace is God giving us what we don't deserve, and therefore us giving others what they don't deserve, the grace to not be offended. But also mercy is God withholding what we do deserve. And so now it's us showing mercy. You've offended me, and I want to let you have it with both barrels, but I have to show you the mercy that I have been shown. Because the thing for me, it always frustrates me when I lose my temper with my wife or my son or friends or whomever, people in traffic. It doesn't matter who it is. It's like, God, you've never treated me that way. And now I've let my justice get outside the banks of mercy or outside the banks of grace. And even if it's I have the opportunity to apologize, I've still done damage. And that damage takes a while to rebuild. These cities and towns that were destroyed by floods, it doesn't just get repaired overnight. It takes time. When we let it outside the banks, we are hurting people, again, swinging the dumbbell. We're hurting people greatly because we didn't emulate what we know to be true about God, that he is a merciful God. He withholds what we deserve, and he's a gracious God. He gives us what we don't deserve.
And I think the challenge for us is, as men, as women, as followers of Jesus who, without a doubt, struggle, is God is the thing that I constantly come back to with the Lord is he is perfectly just. He is perfectly merciful, and he's perfectly gracious.
Yeah.
And it's all three, not one at a time, but at the same time. For us, and our very fallible state is we tend to go justice or mercy, but we don't see all three of them working together. And maybe the challenge for us is, instead of leading with just justice or just mercy, is what if we began everything with that true humility and grace?
Yeah.
And then I think it just allows us to, as Micah would say, walk humbly with the Lord and to follow his lead.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite sayings, and I learned this from somebody else 20 years ago, but all behavior is purposeful. When I can look at the purpose and look at somebody and think, all right, this isn't their normal character. Why are they acting this way? I'm caring about them. But if I focus on the behavior and how they're wronging me, then it's all about me, and I'm never going to show that humility. Because if you're looking at yourself and caring about me, how is this going to impact me? How does it make me feel? What does it make me want to do? That's never mercy and grace. That's never justice and righteousness. That's selfishness. But if I look at the purpose, this isn't their usual character, or maybe it is their usual character, but what's driving them there? How can I help them move forward? And so I think that kind of leads us to our last question. And it's one of my favorite verses in the Bible that I run to an awful lot. Romans 2:4 says, it's God's kindness, not his wrath, not his anger, not his judgmentalism. It's God's kindness that leads people to repentance. So if we were to show the kindness, the mercy, the grace, the willingness to listen to others, how would it help us hit the ultimate goal more often of leading people to Christ?
I think it pairs very well with where we began the conversation of when Pastor said that living unoffended will help us be happier and live longer. He also said living unoffended will help us become shining examples of Jesus to a lost and dying world. I think about the number of times that Jesus, whenever someone had an issue, he didn't always come back, and most of the time he didn't come back with a statement. He came back with a question.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think what I love about Romans 2:4 is it is God's kindness. And his ultimate goal is to lead us to repentance. The question needs to become for us is, what's our ultimate goal? Is it to convince people that we're right, to get them to believe what we believe about every issue? Or is our ultimate goal that they would become followers of Jesus, and then we could help them advance in their journey with Jesus? And it's not that I get it right all the time, but the one thing that I have heard over and over again that I try to remind myself daily of is, John, remember, questions convict, statements condemn. And I think so often the Lord, he has the right to make statements over our lives. We would serve ourselves well, and we would help our chance to win people over to the kingdom of God if instead of leading with statements, we led with questions.
Yeah. I back to Proverbs again. It's the verse that says, the fool always is right in his own mind. And to me, if you're always wanting to be right, you want to prove people wrong. In fact, my guys this morning in our community group, we were just talking about this today. And they said, where do you think this came from? And I said, unfortunately, my generation started talk radio. And talk radio was built to argue. And now it's not just radio. It's on it's the news shows, and news is no longer about the facts. It's about how can I sway you? How can I tick you off about somebody else? Yes. And, Paul actually told Timothy, I think it's 2 Timothy 2, he said, stay away from people who just want to argue about issues. Now that's the Pittenger version because I don't remember but that's in essence what it is. And when we just want to be right, when we just want to win, it's never kindness because then it's about me. I know I'm right. If someone walked up to me and said, hey, Bob, I don't believe that Jesus really rose from the dead. I believe he did. I can go off and say, I'm going to prove to you this. Well, that's just going to cause an argument. But if I look at them and say, hey, tell me what has led you to get to this place in your life? What makes you believe that? And I listen to them. And then I look at them and say, hey, can I share with you the evidence that I thought was just overwhelming that it forced me to believe in Jesus? Now, I'm not trying to prove anything with Jesus. I'm saying, here's the evidence. Are they going to be more willing to listen? Because I listened to them and I asked questions and I genuinely cared. How did you get here? Because then again, it's about them. We're making them the hero of the story. Do I think they're wrong? Absolutely. But I'm not worried about being right. I want to hear them and how they arrived at this belief. And it doesn't matter what belief it is. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's how did you get there? Hey, let me tell you why I believe differently. Let me tell you the evidence that changed my mind. Now you're not telling them they're wrong. You're saying it's my story. A few weeks ago, Pastor Alex was here the week that he shared his testimony. And he said, people can tell you they don't believe in God. They don't believe in Jesus. They don't believe. But one thing they can't do is argue about your story. It's your testimony. And this is the same thing. If you listen to theirs and then you get the chance to share yours and you're not opposing each other, it's two people having a kind conversation willing to share.
I think that you just hit the nail on the head. When I think about Romans 2:4, the word that we so love about God is his kindness. Mm-hmm. And the word that we want in our conversations with one another is validation instead of kindness. And maybe if we led with kindness, people would be more open to the truth of who Jesus was and is.
Yeah, that's good. So, well, down below are a few questions for you, whether you're doing this on the app or in your community group. There are a few questions for you to answer. And let me encourage you with this. Remember, the name of this series is Unoffended. Don't let your group run off in a way and start explaining why all Democrats or all Republicans are bad. Don't make this political. Make this about you, not somebody else, not the president, not a senator, no one else. This is about you and how easily you're offended. Keep your mind on that because the ultimate thing is for you to become a disciple maker of Jesus Christ. There are people who need you to live an unoffended life.